All right, guys. Our next guest is a former UFC welterweight champion. He now returns at UFC 207 on a massive card against Neil Magny, and he's got a very interesting story these days. Johny Hendricks, welcome back to Submission Radio. How's it going?
I'm doing great. You?
No, we're doing very well, and thank you for joining us on the program. I mean, we spoke to you last, I think, at UFC 200, and I mean, everything seemed like it was going to plan, and then, of course, the weight cut ended up being a major issue for you. When we saw you at the early weigh-ins, it looked like you were ready, and you gave everything to make that weight cut. For fans who didn't really hear about what happened afterwards and what went wrong, can you tell us what exactly did go wrong? What went wrong with that weight cut?
Really we were excited about the early weigh-ins, but I should have known, for example, whenever you go to sleep and you wake up and you try to start moving again, it's hard. It takes twice as long to get your body to sweat again. So what I should have done is I should have pushed maybe an extra 30 minutes that night and got the weight off. Instead, what I did is we said, hey, let's just get it off tomorrow. And whenever I did that, that sort of cost me, that quarter of a pound, because whenever I started running and everything, it took me longer than I expected to get a sweat started. And once you hit that stage, you're sort of, and you only have from 8 till 10 o'clock. Now, if I would have had it, until 4 o'clock, I would have made weight. I would have lost that 1/10 without having to do anything, right? But since they did switch it, like I said, it's my fault. And whenever I went to bed thinking that I could float a little bit more than I did, and I didn't. So I had to get my body moving, and it just didn't want to. It didn't want to get rid of it.
It sounds like obviously a learning experience for you, sort of as it was playing out. What was going through your mind was sort of when you're standing on those scales, thinking, "Oh man, if it wasn't for that 30 minutes, it would have been a completely different story." What was going through your mind then?
Just really at that point, you're sort of at the mercy of the scale, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can complain about it, you can do whatever you want to, but there's nothing, it's not going to change the outcome of it. So you just got to sit there and say, all right, that's over with. It's time to rehydrate and do everything. And next time, no. So this next fight, guess what? I might be a half a pound over whenever I go to bed. So that way I can wake up at 8 and see where my weight's at. I usually float 1.4 pounds the night of the weigh-ins, usually, because I'm like 73, 74, right? Well, this time I was like 71 and a half, and then all of a sudden I woke up. I was at 71, or excuse me, I was 72 half. I was right? But I only lost like a half a pound, so it was a pound over. Where, like I said, if I would have woke up, if I'd have pushed an extra 30 minutes, I might have been 171 and a half. Then I wake up, I'm a half pound under. I go down there at 8 o'clock. I check my weight. I step on the scale. You make weight. It's over with, right? But I haven't made an 8 o'clock weigh-in since I was 24 years old. It's almost 9 years ago, right? And I forgot how difficult it is to make weight at 8 o'clock in the morning, or 10 o'clock in the morning. And like I said, that's something that will never happen again, because guess what? I'm going to push, even if that means go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. This last time I went to bed at 10. So if I'd even pushed, until 10:30, 11, maybe that's, I get the weight off that I need to. And we're not even talking about this, but everything's a learning curve for me. Of course, I always like to take the harder road to things. I've always been that way. And, sometimes it comes back and it bites you. And, but you know what? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger and makes you better. And that's really how I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people wondering if the UFC tried to force you to move up to middleweight for this next fight that you're having at UFC 207. Did anyone say anything to you about it, or did anybody contact you and trying to get you to move to middleweight, or did you not really hear from anybody and the next fight was just put at welterweight?
Yeah, just put it welterweight. Here's the thing: if they a quarter of a pound, yeah, it's still missing weight, but it's still a quarter of a pound. And if I had to move to welterweight to do a fight over a quarter pound, then that's what I got to do. But they didn't say anything because I think because really a couple of the guys that are UFC guys thought that it broke whenever I was on 171, right?
What do you mean broke? As in like broke even? The weight broke even?
Yeah, like the so on a meat scale, it just got to break. Does that make sense? Got to break.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that when it's touching the top of the scale, if it breaks then you make weight. Okay, that's how you make weight. But they're not the people who get to judge it. You know what I'm saying? They're not. So just because they may want me to make weight, who knows? And that's that's like I said, the scale. You live and die by the scale. But a quarter of a pound, I'm not even worried about it because right now I'm under 200. I still got 10 weeks to train or until my fight. I'm taking it more serious. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to, whenever I get there, I still want to lose 10 pounds like I did last time. I think I had to lose like 12 or 13. This time I want to lose 10 because I don't think it's going to hurt me now that we have so much time to gain weight back. I think it's going to, if I can be 10 over, I'll still be able to get to 186, 188 and fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great fighting weight for me.
You spoke to ESPN recently, Johnny, about how after the last fight, you and your wife sat down. She said, Johnny, if you're going to fight like that, quit because that's pathetic. And you said, I agree, that was not how I fight. I mean, that seems like a pretty full-on and confronting conversation. Was it an eye-opening moment for you when, your wife said that to you? And how difficult was it for you to hear something like that coming from her?
You know what? She's my wife. Here's the thing. You're not going to meet a tougher critic than myself. Listen to my interview that I did right after that fight. That's not the guy who won the belt. That's the guy who's just in the motion. All right? That's the guy that's just sitting here. He's waking up, doesn't want to do a different job. He likes his job, but he's not competing at his full potential. That's what fighter has been out there. And that's the guy that y'all have seen in the last two fights. And now I'm over the point where, hey, guess what? And you know what? I thought that it was a good conversation to have because, here's the thing is that if my wife's not behind me, then I'm not going to be at my full potential either. I'm a firm believer in that. I think that as soon as you get married, you become one, and the good Lord makes me, I have to listen to what she says as well. And that's why I hold her values to a high standard as well. When she tells me something, I sit there and say, all right, then this is what we got to do. Then we talk about it. All right, what do you have to do to become a great fighter again? Or to perform like I should? One, I have to become an athlete again. With 4 kids, my wife is running around with like a chicken with her head cut off.
Mm-hmm.
She is going she is everywhere. She has 3 soccer practices, 4 different soccer practices a week, right? We play soccer on Saturday. My girls play soccer on Sunday. That's not even counting having a 5-month-old boy, or 6 months now, that she has to lug around everywhere. So not only does she have to get 3 kids ready, or 4 kids ready, she's got to get 3 of them to soccer games on Saturdays, and then on Sunday has to control 3 kids and get another one to practice as well. So what we compromised is on the weekends I will be dedicated and everything, but I have to become a little bit more selfish, meaning that whenever it's training time, I say I have to train these times. I have to train. You know, it puts her in a bind. It does. But that's where I know that I can trust her and that she's going to keep it at home. And these last couple of fights, I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to work out. You know, so technically, my last 2 fights, I've only been working out once a day, 5 days a week, and that's if I don't travel somewhere, right?
Wow.
So I was only working out once a day my last 2 fights. Now I've already started 2 a days. I've been going back to Oklahoma State, doing all those kind of things. I'm training. I'm sort of telling myself what got me to the championship, and what got me there is the mental aspect that wrestling gives me, and that Coach Smith gives me. You know, my coaches here, you know, Stephen Wright, Tony Cabela, they do an amazing job. But the mental aspect that I need, that I want to compete with, wrestling, you can't beat wrestling.
In the same interview, I think, with ESPN, you mentioned that if you go out there at UFC 207 and lose, you'll be done with MMA. I'm curious, Johnny, do you still stand behind that statement? And could there be a scenario where you put in a good performance and still lose, where you'd still sort of consider sticking around?
No, I'm not going to be the guy that just fights to make money. Okay? The money aspect is whatever. I want to. If I'm going to fight, I want to be the best I can be at. And in those last 2 performances, I told my wife, I said, if I have another fight like that, I'm done. I'm not performing to my best ability, and I really do believe that. And is it that, you know, I think I got over that hump. I think the hump is that I was just going through the motions. I was okay with where I was at. I was satisfied. I was satisfied with being a UFC champion. I was satisfied with being in the top 10. You can't be satisfied in this sport. You know, the only thing I can think of is I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. I'm done being satisfied. And if I go out there and I lose another fight because I don't pull the trigger, I don't fight to my full potential, well, guess what? I'm done. I'm not gonna continue to do that. And put my wife through, you know, me being gone a lot and all those kind of things just to do something that I enjoy. Because realistically, yeah, I love training. I love the art of mixed martial arts. I love learning. But I can do that without getting punched in the face. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I think with the mindset I have right now, retiring is not my future. I think that this fight is going to be, because right now a lot of people are probably saying, is Johnny washed up? Is he gone? Is he going to lose this fight and he's going to retire? Right? That's probably what a lot of people are thinking. Johnny was something, but I still believe I can be. And I had to get that mind frame back. I had to get that mind frame back that, hey, I still have things I can do with this sport. I can still go out there and win a championship. Now, how do I do that? By busting your butt every day, waking up sore, can't move. That's what it takes in my mind. And that's sort of what I'm doing right now is, there's times that you wake up, your body's aching so bad. But I just look at myself and I say, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a guy who loses this fight because you're tired and sore? Or do you want to be the guy that everybody goes, dang, he made a 180? And that's really what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to tell myself I can make that 180. This is how I do it.
It's a fascinating situation because obviously I think the other thing people are sort of saying when they look at you is here's a guy who was champion just very recently to be in a position where you're considering retirement, just a couple of years later. Do you sort of have moments where you wonder about how things change so quickly? And obviously, you're going in there to face Neil Magny to sort of stay in there and you don't want to retire. But if you do retire, never get the chance to fight for the title again or, climb the ranks, will that sort of stay in the back of your mind or bother you? Is that sort of part of your motivation here?
You know what? No, I don't need it. Won't. Here's the thing: is that once I sit there and say, all right, it's time to move on to a new chapter of my life and put my 100% focus into that, I'll still be able to be doing what I want to do and all that kind of stuff. And that's really what I'm looking at right now. And so for example, I just opened up a gym with a friend where I live in Midlothian. I'm going to start teaching wrestling. All right. And so whenever I'm doing these things, let's say I win this fight. Well, I will still teach wrestling there, but my main focus is always being a UFC champ. But let's say something happens and I can never fight again. I still want that push and desire to be able to sit there and say, hey, I will give 110% at whatever I do. Just because you succeeded in one area and you couldn't get back to it, doesn't mean you let it haunt you. What you do is you let it fuel you, right? So, for example, I lost my last match in NCAAs to a guy I beat 7 times. The 8th time he got me, right? Well, I used that motivation to help me become a better fighter, to train as hard as I could, and to not leave anything behind. And that's sort of what I got to remember. And that's where, like I said, the mental game is so important in everything I do, at least, right? Mm-hmm. You have to know that in my mind, I want to be the best I can be at whatever I do. And whenever I go out there and I don't fight the best I can or perform the best I can, I take it to heart and I question. I question, do you want to do this? I don't need somebody to tell me, hey, Johnny, you didn't look that good. I don't need anybody to, yeah, I do have those guys. But they usually soften up because I'm like, dude, I look like crap. There's no way that I would have won a championship fight in the way that I just had my past 2 fights, right? And I'm not saying nuts against those other 2 guys. The other 2 guys, they were tough, right? But in my mind, I'm just not fighting the way I know I can. And that's what I have to get back to. And guess what? If I can't, then it's time to say, hey, Johnny, you tried it. And that's what me and my wife talked about. Hey, you tried it. And guess what? It's just not in your cards. Maybe the good Lord has something else planned for me. And that's really my base, is that the good Lord had me. He's blessed me with a lot of things. And he blessed me with 2 national titles. He blessed me as a UFC champ. And if I never get back to it, the good Lord's going to lead me in another way where I can reach kids and maybe I can turn them into what I was. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe one day you can have a championship gym yourself. Let's quickly talk about Neil Magny and touch on this matchup. I mean, Neil has a lot of height and reach. He's had some amazing performances in the UFC. How do you see this matchup? And do you have any concerns over the fact that you're a little bit smaller and we'll have to deal with that reach on fight night?
So I fought Carlos Condit. He's a tall guy. I fought some other guys who are tall. What I have to do, and even Stephen Thompson, whenever I fought him, like I said, the first minute was going my way. But as soon as I got into my mindset that I was going to stand in the middle, you come fight me, I can't have that. So guess what? If I'm Neil Magny, I sort of follow the game plan that Stephen Thompson did. Use your range, use your distance, and try to get me flustered. Right? So guess what? What did I do the first minute with Stephen Thompson? I used angles. I kept moving. It was hard for me to get don't get me wrong, you're going to get punched, but nothing landed cleanly because I was constantly moving. That's what I have to get back to. I have to sit there and say, all right, here's what I'm training two different ways, because Magny does fight. He likes to come forward. He likes to put pressure on you. Now, if that's the case, I think it's going to be a great fight because, I've fought taller guys. I've been able to hurt taller guys, and I'm okay with that. But let's say that he tries to mix it up and say, you know what? It's not going the way that I want it to, and I need to use my distance. That's sort of the fight that I'm also preparing for as well. And like I said, that's something that I didn't know about myself. What if somebody does flee? Do you lose your cool like you did against Stephen Thompson? Well, yeah, I did. So how do you fix that? You get guys who are going to do that are going to run, that are going to sit there and use their length and fight a style that gets you where you get flustered, you start over analyzing things, and you stay still. So, like I said, if I'm Magny, I look at that and say, that's what I'm going to try. I'm going to try to keep him at bay, make him where he has to analyze this, and this. And so for me, I'm thinking, all right, I use my footwork, I use my quickness, I use my explosiveness. That's how I beat Neil Magny.
Well, there you go, guys. UFC 207. Before we let you go, Johnny, because we know you've got a pad session coming up probably any second now, what's the message? What's the message you want to get out there to all the fans, all the doubters, to all the people that maybe are questioning whether you can be champion again? What's the message you want to get out there? Why will we see the best Johny Hendricks at UFC 207?
Because you know what? I'm to the point that if my wife might even say, I win this fight, and she says, Johnny, I don't like you being gone. I'd love for you to be home more. And I say, all right, baby, I'm going to do it. I'm literally, I don't care what's next. I don't care about anything. I'm literally at a point in my career where I am taking it one fight. Nothing matters after December 30th. Right now, December 30th is the only thing on my radar. Nothing else. And I even have people that are like, hey, what are you going to do? I'm like, it's literally December 30th. And, Coach Smith is one of the guys that sort of told me that. He's like, Johnny, take it one fight at a time. You're spreading yourself too thin. You need to get back to what you did prior. And what you need to do is you need to focus on this guy and only this guy. Nothing else in this world matters except for this guy. And that's really what I took to heart, and that's what I'm doing.
All right, well, we'll let you go, Johnny. We love to get predictions. I mean, he would have thought about Neil for quite a bit because this is a very important fight. How do you see this one playing out? How do you see yourself winning?
You know what? I see myself winning. I'm gonna go out there. I'm trying to get back to, and that's sort of my training partners. I've been telling them, once we start sparring hard, I'm going back to the old ways. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna try to start finishing people. I'm gonna let my left hand go, and that's really what I'm looking at. Is I want to go out there and I want people to fear my hands again, and that's what I'm gonna do.
That's it. That. I couldn't have said it any better. The former champion, and hopefully the man who will be the champion in the future. Johnny, we can't wait to see this new version, new and improved version, or should I say the original Johny Hendricks back at UFC 207 against Neil Magny. It's exciting times, guys. Don't forget to follow Johnny on Twitter and Instagram at Johny Hendricks. Johnny, we always love chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you, and y'all have a wonderful day.